12 WWE matches that were better than the original? Let's watch.
12 WWE rematches that were actually better than the original. Number 1, Iron Man match for the Undisputed Championship, Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar had an underrated feud. The most memorable thing about their WrestleMania 19 encounter is Lesnar's botched shooting star
You
press.
can see the
But
hesitation.
even with that blunder, it was still an excellent main event. Their SummerSlam bout is often ignored as well, even though it's another strong match between the two wrestlers. The smartest thing WWE did was turn Lesnar heel. His babyface turn was rushed, and though fans weren't hesitant to cheer the former WWE champion, it felt like WWE cut the legs of Lesnar's heel run for no good reason. However, what makes this match incredible was that Lesnar wasn't playing the unstoppable heel that ran roughshod in his 2002 run. Lesnar's story with Kurt Angle was laid out perfectly throughout this 60-minute match. The future WWE Hall of Famer couldn't particularly out-wrestle the Olympic gold medalist, but he did outsmart the Hall of Famer. It's not an easy feat to book a 60-minute Iron Man match, but Kurt and Brock made it look easy. The first 30 minutes were perfect. Lesnar dominated that portion, and the bout never slowed down.
Can you imagine how tired
the last
you
30
will
minutes
be?
had some head-scratching moments, like Kurt not opting to take the count out to tie the match, or his lack of urgency in the first few seconds, but it didn't hinder it in an incredible match. This is one of the best SmackDown main events in company history. Number 2, TLC 2. Now, how do you top a match that was already a classic? Well, tables, spears, and Rhino, baby. TLC 2 is equivalent to John Wick 2. It's bigger, grander, and filled with more memorable stunts. The match was an unforgettable action-packed thriller from bell to bell. And of course, we all have that awesome spear off the top of the ladder etched into our brains. But there are so many fun spots in this match that it's too many to list. For the most part, it wasn't about the story. This was about spectacle, and there's nothing wrong with watching a car crash live. It's been over 20 years since this legendary match, and ladder matches in general have become crazier and bolder in terms of spots. However, the classic TLC matches help pave the way for these types of matches today. TLC 2 was a roadmap to expertly craft a chaotic match of this nature without being overly complicated or simply relying on spots. This trilogy of matches also gave a spotlight to the tag team division, though it helps that you had 3 charismatic duos fighting for these prestigious belts. The trilogy of TLC matches was just more than about putting on a stunt show. It highlighted the greatness of tag team wrestling and set a benchmark for TLC matches that have yet to be surpassed. Number 3,
they definitely took way more high risk moves. They seemed so fearless back then, because that was crazy. That spear off the ladder with him dangling like that is fucking nuts. That could have went so bad.
WWE Women's Championship match of Lita versus Trish Stratus, Unforgiven 2006.
That is crazy.
Lita and Trish's first match was an Indian strap match where the former 7-time women's champion was squashed. It's amazing to look back at their careers and see how much they've grown as performers. Their final match was perfect. Both women were extremely experienced performers who had strong characters at this time. Lita was the dastardly heel you'd love to hate. Trish was a valiant babyface looking to settle the score once and for all. Lita and Trish will always go down as one of the best rivalries in the women's division. Their main event match on Raw was a defining step for women's wrestling. Their final match added to the legacy of their respective careers. This was an excellent wrestling match with an unexpectedly strong finish. And the landscape of women's wrestling has changed so much since 2006, and Trish and Lita are just some of the pioneers who helped revolutionize the business. Number 4, Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar, WrestleMania 33. Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 20 should have been the ultimate clash of the titans. Instead, the bout was laid out to make Lesnar and Goldberg look bad on their way out. Over 20 years later, these two shocked the world by putting on a fun banger that ended surprisingly. The reason for the second and third Goldberg and Brock Lesnar matches work so well because it focuses on the strength of both men. As we know, Goldberg is known for his explosive and short matches. His brief run in 2003 isn't fondly remembered because he just wasn't a great wrestler. Goldberg isn't a guy that you put in long matches, so Vince was smart to keep his bouts against Lesnar short, sweet, and to the point. But Goldberg vs Lesnar at WrestleMania 33 stood out because it represented a different style from every other match on the card. Plus, it was genuinely a fun match that focused on big move after big move until the final 1, 2, 3 was counted. A huge redemption match for two men who were treated like shit on their way out. Number 5, Shawn Michaels vs The Undertaker, WrestleMania 25. The first ever Hell in a Cell match remains a classic. Sometimes it gets lost in the craziness of Mankind vs Taker, but Shawn Michaels vs Taker was a perfect example of how to get over a new gimmick. Based on their very first encounter, it wasn't shocking that these two could pull out a classic, but it was always going to be hard for them to outperform such a legendary match. And yet, Taker and Michaels did it with ease. No one thought that Michaels was going to be the man ending Taker's streak, but
That's
this guy is dubbed
crazy.
Mr. WrestleMania, so the former WWE champion found a way to make you believe that he could pull it off. Both Taker and Michaels are masters of storytelling, and this classic match began a string of remarkable matches in the years following WrestleMania 25. Michaels and Taker at WrestleMania 26 had more emotion based on the streak versus career stipulation, but the layout of the WrestleMania 25 bout was a bit stronger than the rematch, an unforgettable classic that celebrates the sport of professional wrestling. Number 6, the Hell in a Cell match between Triple H and The Undertaker with Shawn Michaels as special guest referee. Triple H and The Undertaker can be hit and miss. While all three of their WrestleMania matches are gems, some of their bouts outside the big event are kind of boring. Add the Hell in a Cell stipulation in the PG era, and there are so many ways that this could have turned out to be terrible. But Triple H and Taker went on to have the best Hell in a Cell match of the PG era. The story going in was incredible. This was about more than ending the streak. It was about defining which man was the best of an era that's fondly remembered. And in Shawn Michaels, whose allegiance to Triple H was questioned since his DX buddy called him weak, and this match is simply perfect. Again, most people didn't buy that Triple H would end the streak once and for all. However, the drama within the match changed that perception really quick. The surprise sweet chin music from Shawn Michaels leading into a pedigree led to one of the best near falls ever done in WWE. This is a case where the story fully carried the match, but the work rate of these two was still at a very top level. A tremendous match that should have been the true send-off to the Triple H Undertaker feud. Number 7, John Cena vs Shawn Michaels on Raw, April 23, 2007. And here's a controversial take. John Cena is a great wrestler. Sure, we can see him calling spots in the ring sometimes, and sure, his character was incredibly stale during the Super Cena days, but there are too many classics with Mr. Hustle, loyalty, and respect to just ignore how good he really is. And we stated this in the Brock Kurt match, it's not easy to wrestle for an hour. However, the difference in that bout was the 15-second breaks that competitors received. In this match, it was simply one fall, so there were no breaks whatsoever. That made Cena's performance more impressive. This wasn't about titles, this was about pride. The first portion of the match saw the former WWE champion out-wrestle the Heartbreak Kid and actually helped to explain why the match was so slow-paced in the early goings. But nobody out-wrestles Mr. WrestleMania, and the belt kicked into third.
It's crazy because I never really think about that. Like the fact that they have to go for so long doing all these crazy ass moves. It makes sense for, like, you know, the beginning of the match to be a little bit slow, a little bit, you know, slow pace. And then later on it picks up, because I just never think about, like, damn, this match is long. Like, I just be locked in and paying attention to what they're doing. But I never like think like, oh damn, this match has been going for like 30 minutes now. Like, I never think about that. But to them, they probably don't think about it either, because they are like performing and they are in the moment. But just to hear like them going for 60 minutes, that's crazy. I wonder if it feels like that for them. Probably not, because they train, just like you said, like the beginning, they start out kind of slow, they don't do too much, just to like not burn themselves out. That is insane.
Headgear once Michaels escaped the STFU. This deviated from the usual John Cena formula and allowed both men to shine from a technical aspect. But then again, a broom can have a classic match with Shawn Michaels, so these two having a very entertaining 60-minute match isn't too surprising. Number 8,
Especially if
the
the match is
Extreme
good,
Rules
I
match
do not
of
be
John
thinking
Cena
about the
vs. Brock
time.
Lesnar, Extreme Rules 2012. When fans think about John Cena vs. Brock Lesnar, everyone instantly goes back to their SummerSlam 2013 shocker. The match was great, but we have never seen Cena in such a vulnerable and weak position. However, it pales in comparison to Brock's first match back in WWE, so does their first encounter at Backlash 2003. John Cena was still learning the ropes around that time. It was an okay match, but it was a bit clunky and awkward at times, highlighting the inexperience of Cena. But the match at Extreme Rules 2012 was a culmination of how both men had changed. Brock Lesnar switching to an MMA-based style had made his matches feel different. They felt like a fight, and his return to the company was easily the best part of 2012. It was an extremely physical and surprisingly violent match. Given that this was the PG era, seeing this level of blood made it a true gem. And the only problem with this match was the odd decision to put Cena over. Luckily, it didn't kill Brock's aura, but it was still a stupid mistake that took some momentum out of Brock's huge return. Number 9, CM Punk vs. The Undertaker, WrestleMania 33. Vince McMahon loves the Montreal Screwjob. The company has replicated that moment on several occasions, including Taker and Punk's submission match at Breaking Point 2009. This year was the summer of Punk. The straight-edge star was off to a hot feud with Jeff Hardy and was coming into his own as the top champion. However, WWE made the mistake of replaying the greatest hits onto The Undertaker, which made the feud feel disjointed and cold. Still, this was The Undertaker and CM Punk, so the two should have had a great match. What actually happened was that Punk was treated as a joke that easily tapped out in less than 15 minutes. All the hard work the company did to build him up was killed at breaking point in 2009. As CM Punk was a star in 2013, and it was the right time for these to fight one more time. Punk and Taker had the best match at WrestleMania 33. Again, no one bought into the idea that he was going to end the streak, but the purpose of Taker during this period was to watch him have excellent matches. Punk kicking out of the tombstone was an incredible moment. Wrestlers rarely kick out of that finisher, so to see Punk do it had you guessing whether the streak would finally end. That was the brilliance of Taker's matches. He knew that audiences wouldn't believe that his streak was ending, so the matches were typically laid out to cause some doubts among the fans. The only flaw with this feud was using the ashes of Paul Bearer. It was a distasteful and unnecessary prop between two men who knew how to build a rivalry without such nonsense. Number 10, The Rock vs. Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 19. Now, people say that Vince McMahon is Stone Cold's greatest rival, but that argument could be made for The Rock instead. Austin faced off against 3 generations of The Rock, that being the Nation of Domination Rock, People's Champion Rock, and Hollywood Rock, and you saw the level of growth throughout each of their encounters. It's a shame that this match wasn't billed as something bigger than it should have been. The finale between the two of the biggest stars of the Attitude Era went out with a bang. Several fun callbacks from their previous matches made this feel even more special. This was technically an end of an era match. Rock vs. Austin Part 1 was when these two were still rising in the company. Austin vs. Rock Part 2 was the peak of the latter and this full induction into the main event. Rock vs. Austin Part 3 saw the shocking heel turn of Stone Cold, which did hamper the match once Vince screwed over The Rock. Rock vs. Austin Part 4 was about defining what the Attitude Era was. These two were the benchmark for WWE's most celebrated period, and it was a sort of a goodbye match featuring the stars of yesteryear.
I'm gonna cry.
An incredible match that often gets overshadowed. Number 11, ladder match for the World Heavyweight Championship, Chris Jericho versus
That just looks so nostalgic, bro. Seeing them in the ring like that together.
Shawn Michaels. But somehow people forget that Michaels and Jericho fought at WrestleMania 19. It tells you how stacked the card was when Jericho's best WrestleMania match is barely mentioned. These two didn't officially feud until 2008, and it's one of the best rivalries of this generation. It was a well-crafted story that brought redemption to Chris Jericho's lackluster run in 2007, and it only further added to the list of great rivalries throughout Shawn Michaels' legendary career. Michaels had a strong match at WrestleMania 19, but the No Mercy ladder match comes after months of compelling storytelling. Jericho was the ruthless heel, Michaels was the babyface dead set on finishing off the former champion once and for all. The ladder match was more on a technical side with a couple of great ladder spots sprinkled in. In fact, the biggest spot was a backdrop into a crossbody through an announce table. It just goes to show that you didn't need to do crazy stunts in order for this type of match to be great. The ending is one of the best ladder match finishes ever. Michaels was on the cusp of overcoming the odds and finally beating the evil Chris Jericho, but the former Y2J won the game of tug of war, capping off a tremendous feud that will be remembered for years to come. And number 12, Sami Zayn vs. Kevin Owens at Battleground 2016. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens is a rivalry that spans back to their black and gold days of NXT, when the former Universal Champion turned his back on his best friend following his NXT title win. Some even say that this feud goes back to the early 2000s during their time in Ring of Honor. Legend has it that Sami Zayn was the man under the El Generico mask, but unfortunately we'll never get the truth because El Generico strangely disappeared in 2013. Nevertheless, the battles between former best friends usually brings out the best in both competitors, and this was no different here. Whether they're a tag team or bitter rivals, Zayn and Owens have excellent chemistry every time they step into the ring. Zayn has a Daniel Bryan-like quality that makes him feel relatable and likable, and it always helps when Owens is such an easy heel to hate. The emotion of the two former best friends battling on stage was felt throughout the match, and the climax of Zayn hitting the haluva kick, catching Owens as he was falling, and connecting with a statement haluva kick was brilliant. It was a shame that WWE didn't capitalize off Sami's momentum after this hot feud, but the rivalry opened the eyes of fans who had no clue who the former NXT champion was when he arrived onto the main roster. But there you have it, folks. 12 WWE rematches that were actually better than the original.
Alright, you guys, this is gonna do it for this reaction. Make sure to leave some likes and comments down below. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next one.